All right. So today, guys, we're going to be talking about creative problem solving within a framework that's typically a little rigid, immigration. Immigration space has historically had different guardrails, and we have with us today two amazing people who are truly entrepreneurial and have made major changes in their fields within immigration and specifically immigration law. I'm your moderator, Caroline Hoogland. I am co-founder of the Build Fellowship and also serving as our Chief Marketing Officer. Excited to be here talking to you guys today. My background really serves from working in private sector, helping businesses, startups understand their vision and achieve scale. Over the last couple of years, I had the chance to connect with Jeff Goldman and his daughter, Danielle, and we have now co-founded a new initiative that we'll talk to you guys about today. And Jeff will be able to share the origin story of that initiative. So I don't want to give too much away, but we want to make ourselves highly accessible. So after this webinar, we will share contact information and be able to send follow-up. So no worries if you're not able to attend or you want to email me and ask questions after, we will be available. And our guest speakers. So our featured guest for this week is James Pittman. James, as I mentioned, is co-founder of Docketwise. For those of you who don't know what Docketwise is the #1 immigration case management software in the United States. There's no way to be humble about it. It's an amazing software solution that James and his team founded. James worked with a client in a past life to find this. I'm really excited to hear his story and allow him to really share how he was able to innovate. And as discussed, James also immigration attorney in his past life. So we're very lucky to have James with us. He's a very busy guy. This is probably the busiest time of year for James. So be very happy to be graced by his presence. And our second featured guest today is Jeff Goldman. Jeff has many titles. Most importantly, Jeff is founder of Goldman Partners Immigration Law and co-founder, business partner to me, and his daughter Danielle of the Build Fellowship. Jeff has spent more than, Jeff, I think this number needs to be updated. I think you've been practicing for more than 26 years.
31 years.
31. I'm going to make a mental note to update that. So Jeff's been practicing immigration law for over 30 years. He is specializing in working with outstanding individuals, working with foreign nationals. His firm is based in the Boston, Massachusetts area. And whether or not you're seeking extraordinary ability, natural interest waiver, H-1B, we'll talk about some cap exempt H-1B solutions, or you're now ready to take the next step and move into your green card journey. Jeff and his firm service all types of cases within business immigration law. So I'm excited to have a great dialogue with both you guys today. And as we get started, I would love to kick it over to James to allow him to share a little bit about his journey in founding Docketwise. And this was actually a quote that I found in an interview that James had done. James, this might be a surprise to you, but I found an interview that you had done, I believe it was 7 or 8 years old, right when you had first decided to honestly pivot your career a little bit and try to do something bigger than what you were currently doing. And I think what's nice about both of you guys is you've both had these critical junctures in your career where you decided to do something and really creatively solve a problem. So James.
Well, Catherine, thanks so much. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here today with you and with Jeff. I'm a huge admirer of the Build Fellowship, really. My story is, if someone would say to me, how did you become the person that you are today? I honestly don't know that I could really tell them. I was like a lot of people. I went to law school back in the 90s. And when I first was in law school, I did not immediately plan on going into immigration law. So, I mean, I had a mixed academic background. I had a pretty strong science background. So my first sort of, venture out was in the field of intellectual property law, and I practiced in patent law, patents, and a little bit of trademarks, but mostly it was patent law. And after doing that for several years for some, mostly for boutique firms, and a stint in a large firm as a kind of a summer associate. I decided that I really wanted to go with something else that I was passionate about. I became more and more interested in immigration. And I was in a good position to make a pivot. I had acquired, skills from working in the firms that, I knew would transfer. And one thing that, I mean, people are always amazed because they think substantively that there are two very different subject matters, and they are. But nevertheless, they're both, what they have in common is they're both federal administrative areas of practice, which involve, in each case, shepherding things through agencies of the federal government. So that was what they had in common, and that's why some of the skills that I'd acquired transferred. So I went into, I mean, I first sort of got up to speed on immigration law, and I did a variety of things. I certainly went to a lot of conferences, a lot of ALA conferences, took a lot of CLEs. I volunteered for a program which was run by the Texas Bar Association. I think it still exists. It's called Pro Bar, and they provided pro bono representation down on the border. So I went down there to South Texas and spent some time there taking cases and got familiar with the immigration system, the immigration courts. So it was, down and dirty. At one point, I was staying with in a shelter that was run by a Catholic nun and doing pro bono work. So it was, really, really sort of like a boot camp. And then I, went into practice for my own on my own, and I did a variety of things. I mean, it was a mixed practice where I had a lot of all of the usual typical types of cases. Family immigration. I had a fair bit of asylum and removal defense. I had some employment-based immigration, but mostly for small companies who had a couple of employees that they wanted to hire, things like that. And I did that for a number of years, really, and I really was in love with the area. It's an area of practice that I really am fascinated by. I continue to be fascinated by it because of the variety of environments in which immigration lawyers are called to serve clients. Immigration, everything from someone's getting married to their fiance who's from another country, all the way to someone's coming here to study, someone is coming here to work. It is such a broad field, and immigration lawyers work in such diverse environments, whether it's in law firms of all sizes, in nonprofit organizations, or for, in some instances, the government or quasi-governmental entities, maybe National Institute of Health or other agencies where they have to bring in a lot of people from abroad, and for universities as well. So it's an area that I have, both a humanitarian commitment to, an interest in as a lawyer, and also an academic interest in how the immigration system works, and what are the policies that the U.S. should implement in terms of immigration. And then basically, as Catherine started to say, I teamed up with a former client of mine, and we founded Docketwise. I mean, I had a client of mine who was also an attorney, but had an investment investment banking background, whose immigration case I handled successfully. And he came to me after we were done and said, I have an idea. We could actually start a tech company around immigration. And I thought to myself, this is a fantastic, literally from the very first day, I thought, this is just this is a fantastic idea. And this would be a way to take what I've been doing. I've helped hundreds of people, and now I could have the ability to have a much larger impact on the field. So I jumped at the chance. It was the kind of chance that comes up once in a lifetime, and I took it, and one thing led to another, and we were successful, and it did grow. And the first 10 users of Docketwise were friends, local friends and colleagues of mine that I convinced to give it a try, and one thing led to another, and by really grinding it out, we were able to grow it into what it is today. And then we were, then 2 years ago, we were acquired by my case, and then on to Affinipay. But so that's Catherine. That is the nutshell version. And
I think what's so interesting about your story, James, is okay, we have a lot of folks who join our weekly webinars, and they we might have foreign nationals who are nearing the end of their F1 and they're looking at entering the lottery. Or, hey, I'm not in the United States right now and I'm trying to start a company and I would like to be a founder in America. Or we have immigration attorneys who are coming and thinking, I want to offer my clients unique solutions. How do I ensure that my firm, my practice is more than just up to snuff, but actually using tools and technologies to build competitive advantages to succeed in the space of immigration. And so I find that your story and working with someone who was an actual client to shape something like Docketwise, to me, it's connecting the dots to the end user in such a way that naturally allows it to be successful. However, I'm sure that the journey for you to get to where that was had a lot of bumps. And so for the audience today, when you think about the success that you found and the power of collaborating with your client, as we can see, what were some of the biggest hurdles that you faced? And was there ever a point at which you said, "Oh, I should just stick to pen and paper and keep practicing how I am"?
No, I mean, there were certainly hurdles, but there was never a time that, I mean, once we set our goal on creating a form solution that we intentionally designed to be the most powerful forms technology available in the market for immigration lawyers. And the reason why it is because of how it works. We're able to allow you to create any combination of forms, and then our technology extracts the questions that are on the forms and puts them together into one unified web questionnaire that's available in 11 different languages. And you have multiple ways of sharing the questionnaire with your client. That's what this slide is about, collaborating with your client. That's so powerful, and that is so labor reducing and time saving for immigration lawyers that there's no way in today's day and age that someone should be practicing manually and trying to, I mean, in the old days, you had to have, assistants typing things in manually. You had to come up with questionnaires and collect all that data. That is just passé now. There's really no going back to that, nor should anyone desire to go back to that. The hurdles that we faced were, in the business sense of just getting the customers to trust us. When you're new, and you don't have a long-standing reputation, it's getting people to take a chance on trying you out. And so we had a variety of incentives. At first our price point was very low, and we were giving people, a generous free trial, and we just wanted people to try us because we were convinced that if they saw how our platform worked and saw how easy we had made the process of the data collection, then they would stick with us, and that is what happened. But we did a lot of things that enabled that to happen by listening to our users. So the whole strategy within Docketwise has always been to build features that the customers are asking for. At no point did we ever say, even with me or with Jeremy, who the co-founder, at no point did we say, well, this is what we want to build. And just do that in a vacuum. Every feature that we added were things that the customers were asking us for. And our customer success team, from the first customer success rep that we hired, took down all of the feedback, and then every single day, literally in this company, and it's still the practice every single morning in this company, our engineering team gets together and takes the feedback from our customer service people in terms of what the users are saying, what they're asking for, and all of that is kept track of in terms of number of upvotes, prioritizing requests and recording how many users have asked for particular features. So by doing that and building what people are asking for, that is what kept driving us forward, and lots of hard work.
Amazing. And something that I found to be interesting is with the different advantages and the life cycle of where Docketwise started, where it is today, the acquisition, and where you think it's going. I would love to understand, in the world of AI, innovation, needing to make sure that you're staying ahead of the curve, where do you see the future of your tool?
Well, we're working hard on a variety of things, and AI is certainly one of them. So there's, usages that are immigration specific that we are working to develop within Docketwise that have to do with AI. And I say this with, I mean, with the understanding that what I'm saying is things that we are working on, but I do not have like a timetable. If someone raises their hand and asks me like, well, when,
Where's the product roadmap? Just kidding.
Right, but we're working on using AI to read data from documents, extract data from documents, like with using optical character recognition, and then intelligently populate to the forms. That's one of the most important use cases for immigration law, so that then you're really, no one's needing to type, you're not needing to type, the client's not needing to type, the data is being extracted from the documents and going into the forms intelligently. That's one of the uses, but Affinipay as a whole has an AI strategy, and we are deploying AI tools across all the brands that comprise our family of companies. So there will be other uses of AI that are let's say flow from that larger strategy as well, in terms of in terms of perhaps summarizing documents and generating documents automatically using AI tools. But those are all things that we are looking at. Other than AI, e-filing certainly is huge, and we have been assiduously deploying our e-filing features. We've just added our H-1B, let's say the bulk of our H-1B e-filing capability, which was the ETA 9035 e-filing that with DOL directly from Docketwise, and then the I-129 form, which USCIS this year just made available for e-filing. And you have to understand that when USCIS makes that available for e-filing, it went live sort of right at the start of the H-1B filing season, or maybe a week beforehand. So our engineers had to work literally round the clock once it had gone live to actually develop the tools within Docketwise to do the e-filing, and we've now deployed that. So I really have to always congratulate our top-notch engineering team who is really capable of who's really got this down to a science and knows how to create these tools. So they're all fantastic software engineers, the best. And so we've deployed our H-1B e-filing capability. We have other common forms for e-filing, and we're just continuing to expand that capability because we know that people want it. And that's really the direction that everything is going. If you look at the larger immigration and legal tech trends, certainly AI, generative AI, e-filing, seamless end-to-end integration, so that data moves from one point to another in the process, and your tech stack becomes ever more integrated. Those are all large scale trends. Electronic payment processing, less and less of people paying by check, or less and less of people paying in cash, more and more online payments. Those are all large trends. So we're doing our absolute best to stay at the forefront of all of them.
And I think what's interesting, which I believe will be a nice natural segue to us also talking to Jeff, we at the Build Fellowship, we work and partner with so many different groups of people, whether it be university partners, foreign nationals, immigration attorneys and firms, or enterprise partners like yourself. Having this 30,000-foot view and seeing how quickly the field of immigration and just the field of law at large has changed, and what the tech insurgence into these fields is starting to become, and regulatory is starting to evolve. What's your prediction for the law firm of the future? How do you envision firms will be operating, and what do your customers need 10 years from now? And this should be maybe a fun question to answer, or you don't have to if you don't have a prediction, but it's an interesting moment. I mean, we're seeing more and more tech startups even popping up offering legal and immigration services who aren't even traditional law firms.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay, I mean, a couple of predictions. I mean, certainly, I think that the bulk of, okay, so AI is really going to revolutionize a lot of the tasks, and lawyers will start focusing on the tasks that really require the human brain and human reasoning. A lot of the mechanics of doing legal research, extracting case holdings, synthesizing case holdings, and putting together a first draft, that's going to be done by AI, and then it's going to be the lawyer who then, takes that, finesses it, makes the argument, maybe resubmits it to the AI to refine. So we're going to be working in partnership with this AI technology. And it's where the subtleties of the human brain and our human mind's capability of assessing the social significance of what we're drafting, in our documents and what we're trying to do as lawyers, the real world significance. It's going to be our real world intelligence, because we are flesh and blood living beings. But the information processing will be done more and more by AI. So we're going to be partners with our technology. It's not going to displace and remove lawyers from the equation, but lawyers are just not going to be doing things that the machine can do easily. That's one thing. Secondly, a continuous integration of technology tools. And I think platforms are going to get better and better at allowing data to move from your intake from your lead collection to your intakes, to your case management, to your production, to your billing solution, to your follow-ups, to your workflow automation, and all of that. That integration is going to get smoother and smoother. I also predict virtual collaboration is going to become bigger and bigger. I mean, we've got Zoom, we're on Zoom right now, but I think that's only going to become more and more, the trend. And then with possibly some other additions, like if the metaverse and virtual reality and the whole metaverse actually becomes something that the majority of the population are using, then you may see firms having offices in the metaverse, for example. This is still kind of futuristic talk, but this is something which has the potential to happen if people really start conducting some social life and business in the metaverse. Then I think you'll see that happen as well. And then the firm, I think with the AI technology, courts, the government, ethical lawyer disciplinary authorities are going to have to grapple with the technology and come up with rules which respect the capabilities of the technology, but also hold the human beings to their ethical and legal responsibilities of using the technology within the framework of attorney disciplinary rules. So you're starting to see courts make rules here and there, and a lot of the bar associations, the New York Bar Association and other bar associations, are coming up with, or let's say founding task forces to study AI. New York its task force just released a report on AI. I think that, yeah.
Well, and I find what's interesting is we're talking about being a frontiersman in spaces that typically have guardrails, and the level and the speed at which we are seeing innovations, whether it be through artificial intelligence, machine learning, different causality of tech startups being intertwined. We're seeing things evolve so quickly. And when we think of the space of immigration law, and Jeff, this is a little bit geared toward you, so be ready. When we think about the space of immigration law in particular, which both of you have dedicated your life to improving and innovating within, how are these regulatory bodies, how is USCIS, how is the Department of Labor, how are they going to ensure that they're staying ahead of the curve in terms of the technologies that we are now able to use? If we have foreign nationals coming over to the United States, or let's say someone's on STEM OPT and now they're entering into the lottery, or hey, I'm a tech founder in Boston and I want to bring over different employees from different countries and I'm not sure where to start. How do I seek a firm? How do I find business partners who can help me navigate the immigration space and ensure that you're working with people who are leveraging the technology of today and pushing those boundaries, but doing so in a way that's staying compliant. And I think that that's the delicate dance that requires the human touch, the human nature component of understanding we have these regulatory bodies and we're pushing the boundaries. And ultimately, it's a push-pull strategy. And Jeff, I would love to now hear from you. When you think about your journey in immigration law, it's been riddled with, frankly, you're kind of pushing the buttons a little bit to see how far you can take it, to understand the law is filled with limitation. And people often say, well, creativity comes from limitation. If you have limitless possibilities, that doesn't mean that you actually have to be that creative to solve a problem. And so I would love to kind of understand, where is your journey and how have you used creative problem solving to push the boundaries of what immigration law means to you and your career?
Well, thanks, Caroline. To me, the fun part of practicing immigration law is sort of pushing the boundaries. I never really was that interested in having a Microsoft as a client and processing 1,000 labor certifications with the same job title and job description. It just didn't seem that interesting for me. What's much more interesting to me is a startup company with really sophisticated technology that doesn't quite fit into any of the square holes that have been made within the immigration law. And they need something hybrid, something in between. And they need, frankly, that's where AI, I don't think it's not ahead of me yet, because AI isn't really thinking, yeah, but not in this case. Maybe in most cases, but not in this case. And I love clients who bring me cases that just don't seem to fit. But when you really think about it and you start talking to them, more and more information comes out. And that's where my journey started. And just listening and talking to clients about what's going on in their life and thinking of just different creative ways we could approach the immigration law with different fact patterns.
And so speaking of your journey, I would love for the audience to understand, what does that look like? I pulled this quote, you had said this, and I'm cheating, guys. I've had the chance to actually launch a company with Jeff and know that his expertise in certain areas is just riddled with, how can we look at something in a different way? And if the square and the end of the fence is here, I feel like there's a way for us to get around the fence, but still do it in a compliant, legal way. And I think that's the entire nature of how we can innovate in the field of immigration that both of our guests tonight have done. So Jeff, I would love to kind of hear, where's your journey start? I would love to hear global GEIR and how you kind of evolved that.
Right. So I've been so blessed and fortunate in my immigration attorney path. It started off with me not even knowing anything about immigration. A client came into my real estate law firm and wanted me to do something called an H-1B. I keep thinking about that moment, because had that client wanted me to help them with a deportation matter, I think my career would have ended in a different place. But the very first request I got was H-1B. I learned about it, I filed it, and literally a week later it was approved. And that caused my phone to ring 3 more times. Heard you got my friend an H-1B. Can we come in? I was like, sure. And then I helped them, and then the phone rang 9 more times. And it really hasn't stopped in 31 years, I have to say. But that is so unusual. That just does not exactly happen in many other areas of the law. So it immediately attracted me to this immigration niche that I was finding and exploring and loving every time I learned anything more about it. So business immigration, employment side immigration it's where I started, and it's where my career has led. And as I'm sure James and any immigration attorney can understand, it got to the point where not just 5 times a week, but sometimes 5 times a day, I'd be explaining to clients, right, so what you need is an H-1B, but there aren't any. They're gone. They're gone for the year, and you're going to have to wait. And suddenly, it just became ridiculous to keep saying that and not trying to sit back and think, wait a minute, we have a very archaic immigration system. We are the only country in the world that would choose our best and brightest to stay and work here through a random lottery. It's ridiculous. No other country would do that, but ours does. And for one reason, in my opinion, Congress cannot get out of its own way. And both sides, they just can't decide we're going to solve our immigration issues. At any rate, along the way, I had a client who told me they know they need an H-1B, they know there are none left, but what if they go to work for a small university in Western Massachusetts? And I thought, yeah, great, they're a CAP exempt organization, because I do want the audience to understand what a CAP exempt organization is. Congress has declared that there are 4 kinds of organizations that never need to enter the lottery. They can hire an H-1B at any time of the year without the lottery. Those 4 are called CAP exempt H-1B organizations. And they are universities, government research organizations, nonprofit research organizations, and nonprofits that are affiliated with the university through some kind of a written agreement or contract that the nonprofit has with the university, and the contract leads to a benefit for the university. So we did that. I did that H-1B for the university in Western Massachusetts, and it was approved and everything was fine. And then the same client called and said, Jeff, I got a startup going too on the side. Can I have a second H-1B? I said, sure, you can have a second H-1B. I said, oh, but wait a second. Your first H-1B is CAP exempt. You didn't win the lottery. So I don't know. I got to double check the law. And I looked and it was like, I actually was stunned what I was looking at. It said, you can have a second H-1B, even if the first H-1B was without the lottery. And any employer can file a second concurrent H-1B. So we did. We filed one for his startup, and that was approved. And I kept thinking about this. I just couldn't stop thinking about this. I said, well, what if we could what if there was a university that always would be the H-1B CAP exempt organization that would file a petition for talented foreign nationals who couldn't win the lottery and didn't win the lottery. And they filed and it was approved, and suddenly any company could quickly file their own H-1B. And that was the birth, if you want to go back a slide, Carolyn, that was the birth of the global EIR. One of my friends who's a venture capitalist in Boston and I created the Massachusetts Global Entrepreneur in Residence Program. We were the first ones to get a university in the state, the University of Massachusetts at Boston, to agree to always be the CAP exempt organization that would help Massachusetts-only companies if they were in a tough spot and they needed a talented foreign national, but there were no H-1Bs left. And University of Massachusetts started filing 5-hour-a-week H-1Bs. They were approved quickly, letting the full-time employer immediately file their CAP exempt H-1B. The key to this path is the foreign national must remain employed by the CAP exempt organization. They can't get a CAP exempt H-1B with a university, have their own startup or Google or Microsoft file a concurrent H-1B and then quit working for the university. Because if you do that, the US Immigration Service will immediately revoke the approval for the non-CAP exempt organization because you haven't won the lottery, and they cannot have their own H-1B unless you are working simultaneously for one of the 4 CAP exempt organizations. The Massachusetts Employer Entrepreneur in Residence Program ended up being, we created the global EIR because universities across the country wanted to mirror exactly what UMass did. I became a consultant for several states who were building their own EIR program, and the organization Global EIR came about. It's still a very vibrant organization now based in Detroit, and lots of universities and state governments across the country rely on the Global EIR to help them help universities build their own program. And I feel great that I was the founder of that. But along the way, I became a little frustrated because universities can only do so much. They can only hire so many part-time people. How many 5-hour-a-week jobs can they create? And so University of Massachusetts was only filing 10 per year. And just me, one immigration attorney, I had 10 a week that I wanted them to take. James, when he was practicing, he probably had 30 a week that needed help. So
And
I
for
sat
our
back.
audience and just one moment, for our audience to understand, when we think about the volume here and the H-1B lottery and the cap with that 85,000, any law firm in the United States who's practicing business immigration law and filing H-1Bs, this is a huge problem. They're inundated with clients who they can't offer solutions to. And talk about people who want to innovate, this creates a huge issue to the point that starting something with universities seems like a great idea. However, Jeff took it a step further.
When I realized no university could really scale this, I was brainstorming with my daughter, and we started to talk maybe daily about this. We became obsessed over what can we do to scale this, and we decided we would create a non-profit organization affiliated with universities, and we created Open Avenues Foundation. My daughter Danielle very quickly was able to take the story of what Open Avenues Foundation could do, and she found 12 universities across the country to become affiliated with us. And finally, in around 2017 or 18, we said, let's go. Let's try our first petition. And it was for a mechanical engineer working for a mechanical engineering company in Massachusetts, and had lost the lottery 3 years in a row and was on his way out the door. The company had to have him. He was one of the backbones of the company. So they said, we'll be your first customer. And Open Avenues Foundation filed a 5-hour-a-week H-1B petition. It was approved, and we put this mechanical engineer to work leading an experiential learning opportunity for college undergrads who were interested in going into mechanical engineering, but didn't really know what that meant, and certainly didn't know what a mechanical engineer did on a day-to-day basis. And this first employee of ours, he was called a fellow, our first Open Avenues fellow, led 8 or 9 students through an experiential learning opportunity of how to do 3D printing for COVID paraphernalia. And it was fascinating. These students got so much out of it, not to mention he was a delightful foreign national from Germany, and he might have been the first foreign national that many of these students had ever met. It was such a positive win-win. The university partners loved it. Their students were getting something they had never had before. USCIS approved it, and then within a week of USCIS approving Open Avenues petition, the mechanical engineering company filed their concurrent H-1B petition. It was approved, and everything was a win-win-win-win. He stayed for over 2 years working as a fellow for Open Avenues, working full-time for the mechanical engineering company, and then he won the H-1B lottery. More great news. Then he no longer needed the cap-exempt H-1B, and he went on his way, and that opened the door for another fellow to come in. And we've just grown and grown this way. And then along the way, Danielle and I met Caroline and her fiance, Brendan, and just fabulous people who were really interested in what was happening here. And we started brainstorming. And we realized one of the limitations here was that Open Avenues Foundation couldn't do it all. They simply couldn't do the fantastic nonprofit work they were doing and run this entire program, which really did not need to be run by a nonprofit. And it certainly couldn't spread everywhere across the country. So we created the Build Fellowship, which is like the parent organization for nonprofits around the country. I'm proud to say that Open Avenues Foundation is the flagship nonprofit working, but we have other nonprofits now affiliated with the Build Fellowship. And as Caroline is showing on the screen, to date, we've helped 140 companies across the United States retain talent that they would have lost through the Build Fellowship and through the cap-exempt H-1B program. We have a 99% success rate on our petitions filed. Over 1,000 students across the country have benefited from getting these hands-on experiential learning opportunities through our fellows. And we now are up to 13 college and university partners, and some of our colleges and universities are shown there, as well as some of our companies who are just ecstatic that they are partnering with Build Fellowship, because now their key people that they're about to lose are here working legally in cap-exempt H-1B status.
Thanks for sharing that, Jeff.
Yeah.
For our listeners, I think something that proves to be challenging yet rewarding is understanding how we as business leaders, as entrepreneurs, as foreign nationals coming to the United States, as attorneys striving to stay ahead of the curve, how are we squinting at what currently exists in front of us and challenging it? And I would say that both Jeff and James's stories, they're emblematic of what it means to be a disruptor. And it takes disruption to create positive change. And when we think of these fields, and we think of even the list of colleges that we see in the top right here, it took someone at City College of San Francisco to say, you know what? Our career services department, we want to take a chance on supporting an immigration organization. And a higher education institution by no means have any criteria to support an immigration organization. But when you're able to look at something and understand that, hey, there is a symbiotic relationship here. There is a symbiotic relationship with offering clients a better solution to intake information and use digital tools. It makes the client and the customer better, and that's what Docketwise is doing. Build Fellowship, we are servicing U.S. colleges and universities. In doing that, we are allowing foreign nationals to stay, live, work, and thrive in the United States. And when we think of these different solutions, I would love to kind of take a moment to say, how are we constantly challenging ourselves and thinking, what's next? And so, James, I asked you several questions around what are your predictions? You know, you're probably in the throes of the tech product roadmap and making sure that you're leveraging your networks to stay ahead. Jeff, we are constantly looking at what's the next challenge. And so with that, I would love to kind of hear from both of you. What advice do you have? And we can stop screen sharing for a moment. What advice do either of you have for our audience tonight around hitting those hurdles in your career? I mean, again, I'm going back to if you're a practicing attorney and you're trying to give your clients something of immense value, and the amount of SaaS products and the amount of tools, I mean, it's so saturated now. How do you make sure that you're making the right decision? How do you make sure that you're doing something that's truly resonating with the end user? And how do you ensure that you're doing that's going to actually, you know, there's a calculated risk to take? So James, I'll start with you. How have you taken calculated risks in your career? And what's your willingness to hedge your bet on yourself?
Well, I think you have to stay informed, and you have to determine what's going on in an industry. And if you're if you're a practicing lawyer, you need to know what's going on in the field of law. If you're in business, you need to know what's going on in your industry. And you have to engage in continuous learning. And that is done by, you know, availing yourself of the expertise of other people. And that can be in a structured way, whether it's through participating in conferences. It can also be by way of networking with people, getting to know people, and, you know, picking their brain, letting them pick your brain, collaborating with them, just like we're doing right now. We are, you know, two different entities in the immigration space, but we, you know, we are finding ways to collaborate with each other. And having a client-centered approach. I mean, in the case of Docketwise, we have to consider what our firm users, our customers want. That's our direct users, but also what their clients want, which is relayed to us and communicated to us through the user. So, you know, we see a variety of things. You know, there are, for example, on Docketwise, we have a client portal, which can be both for individual clients of the law firm, if it's an individual type of immigration matter, or if it's a business immigration matter with a company as a client, we have an HR style portal. You know, but we have listened to our users tell us, you know, what they would like on the portal. And we've listened to some of our attorneys say, well, you know, our client base might not be the best client base to be logging into a portal, so we want alternative ways to collaborate with them. My point is that you have to have a client-centered approach. And this goes back to what I was saying about how we operate in terms of soliciting the user feedback and evaluating it literally on a daily basis, and using that to guide ourselves. But then sometimes you have to make hard decisions. You know, you have to make hard decisions. We can't acquiesce to every request. I mean, even if it's a large user, they might ask us to implement things that alter the appearance or the character of the product in a way which might be advantageous to them, but might not be good for the rest of our users. So, you know, we have to make sure that we're developing in a way that's harmonious with our product. But you have to be a creative thinker, and you have to be realistic, always be grounded in reality. Don't delude yourself, go into it with sober senses, and yet think creatively. Be an early adopter. Don't be afraid of the tech. Play with the tech. Also, you know, keep in mind, if you're a practicing attorney, they have to keep in mind the ethical considerations and make sure that their adoption of technology, you know, sort of is commensurate with the ethical guidelines. But you also need to get involved and be an active agent in that process. And this is something I wanted to hit on, which was with the AI. You know, as I said, the regulatory landscape is evolving. Attorneys should be engaging, getting involved with the Bar Association, getting involved with the task force, so that their voices are heard, so that you don't suffer a cumbersome, you know, set of regulations that come out without, you know, adequate support from the practitioners. You have to be an active participant in the process. That's very important. And, you know, you have to sort of always do things with the eye toward risk management. I mean, make sure that you are realistically understanding risks of different innovative strategies that you're thinking of pursuing. Soliciting your client's feedback, just like I told you how we solicit our users' feedback. Practicing attorneys should always be soliciting their clients' feedback. And you can also solicit your colleagues' feedback. And their evaluation. And then you have to be an advocate. You have to engage in the process. I mentioned about the AI, but be an advocate more generally for immigration. So I think all of those are important, but you have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, I mean, how can you expect other people to believe in you? And I think it is, and beyond a certain point, in order to be a disruptor, you have to be comfortable. And this is hard. You have to be comfortable that not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to like it. You know, it took me many years, decades of life to get to the point where I understood that not everybody that I meet is going to like me. There's nothing I can do about that. But I think you really have to have the firm inner conviction of what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish in the space, and go into things grounded in reality, using your brain and thinking creatively.
I appreciate that. I anecdotally believe I'm at the juncture in my career where I'm realizing that everyone will not like me, and that's okay as long as I know I'm doing something of high integrity and it's worth it.
Right.
So I appreciate that. Jeff, I want to kick it to you. So we talk all the time. We'll hop on a call and we're talking to a company and they could be filing 30 H-1Bs just in this past lottery. Or we might talk to immigration law firms who are in the same place you were in before you started GEIR. Hey, I don't have enough H-1Bs for my clients. I feel awful. I can't offer a solution. I think I might have heard about your fellowship. Is this legit? What's going on here? What's your advice for folks who are maybe navigating their own immigration journey and trying to figure out, I'm a US citizen. I have a hard enough time renewing a passport. How do we give great advice to people who are trying to navigate and seek answers to ensure that they're looking out for themselves in their own immigration journey? I think James said this very eloquently. You have to believe in yourself. And if you're a foreign national and you're trying to speak to your immigration attorney and really kind of manage up and advocate for yourself, or you're trying to talk to your employer, that's a scary thing. What advice do you have for how you can kind of navigate these systems and find solutions? And I'm kind of using the word manage up, but that's what it seems to be.
Yeah, and we're talking about an immigration system that is really complicated.
Very complicated.
And so it's not easy for a foreign national to approach a manager with a suggested solution, because there's too many moving parts, too many different concerns, from the employer's concerns to the employee's concerns, which could be similar and then very divergent on many levels. I mean, for me, the big thing is breaking down the complexity and understanding what really is critical in this particular case, because every case is different, and every case doesn't have to be as complex as the system would make it seem. Whether I'm talking to a foreign national or an employer, or anyone in the public who asks, which happens all the time, people want to understand. People really want to understand. But time's precious, and people don't have 3 hours to hear about a particular area of the law. So you have to really be able to focus in, respect people's time, but break it down into the simplest steps. Because people at the end of the day want to know, what do I need to do and what will it cost? And so I try to approach every meeting with that. If you're a foreign national and you're looking for a solution, keep looking, keep asking, talking to whoever you can. I talk to people all day long. I'll be honest and transparent here. Sometimes I charge and sometimes I don't. I have a pretty good sense of who has a problem that not only can I solve it, I can do a great job on it, and I won't charge. But when someone really is pushing to talk to me, and I know the question is, I want to know how to immigrate to the US, and that's it. They don't know anything. That is really not a call. That's probably not going to end up being a client. And so I will charge for that call if I even have the bandwidth to take it. But of all the free calls that I give, because people need accurate information, I just pride myself that I do give out accurate information. And when I don't know, I tell a client I don't know, but I'm going to get back to you, and I do. With all the free consultations I give, I'm doing what James did. I'm betting on myself. I am really comfortable with the fact that I can talk to someone for 25 minutes, give them the best solution, a pathway they understand, and the cost. And I think almost 70% of the time I get the business. And so the answer is to not overcomplicate it. You got to really listen and be able to quickly focus on every specific case on what the issue is, and you do it. I just want to throw in one more thing, with regard to technology at my law firm. We listen to our clients, and by listening to our clients, we moved away from the case management software we were using, and we moved our practice to Docketwise, to Jim's company, because our clients were telling us, Jeff, we don't even, you provide all of this to us, you give us this portal, you give us everything, we don't log in, we don't have time. It's so complicated. When we log in, we're not going to use that, we're just going to call you, and you tell us. And I'm like, oh, okay, but I can't take your call every time you need to know when someone's status expires. So let's figure this out. And Docketwise offered us such an easy to use, intuitive system. And since we've switched, our clients just enjoy working with us more, many of them, because they have right in front of them what they need, both individuals and companies. And again, it was in my theme of not overcomplicating things. You log into Docketwise, it's very user-friendly, and that's how I practice law. It's like I don't have all the bells and whistles. I have just what you need. I have everything you need and you
Regulations are
want.
complicated. The regulations are complicated enough. Let's try to
Right.
make the tech simple.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I just want to say thank you both so much for your time. We have 2 or 3 minutes left. If anyone from the audience has any questions, you can ask questions directly in the Q&A feature of the webinar. I will stick around for 5 minutes after and answer any questions that you guys have specifically, especially if it's around specific immigration solutions. If you have questions for James and he has to leave, I want to respect these guys' time. They're very busy people, but feel free to go ahead and type them now, and we can maybe get a couple of questions answered before they leave and start their night.
Caroline, can I answer the one question that I see is already posted on the Q&A?
That looks like a Jeff question.
The question is, while being employed by a cap exempt organization, can the other company, which is the concurrent H-1B employer, can the concurrent company file a green card petition for the fellow? The answer is yes, 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 and that's very common. You are legally inside the US in H-1B status, and your employer can file a green card petition for you.